The Gladiator Revolt, Spartacus and Rome's greatest slave rebellion. Part 1. Powerful hook plus Rome before Spartacus. Powerful hook. The night was unusually quiet, not because the city of Capua was asleep, but because history was holding its breath. Behind thick stone walls, illuminated only by the flickering glow of torches, dozens of men sat in silence. Heavy iron chains rested against the cold floor. Wooden bowls lay untouched. No one spoke. These men had learned long ago that hope was dangerous. Tomorrow, many of them would enter the arena. Tomorrow, thousands of Romans would cheer as they fought to the death. Not for honor, not for freedom, but for entertainment. Some would leave the arena covered in glory. Most would leave as corpses. They were gladiators, slaves, property. To Rome, their lives had a price. But on this night, something was different. One man stood in the darkness, studying every hallway, every guard, every locked gate. He wasn't the strongest fighter. He wasn't the richest. He wasn't even Roman. He was a Thracian, a slave, a man whose name had never been spoken in the Senate. Yet within months, that same name would terrify the greatest republic on earth. Spartacus. The plan seemed impossible. A handful of starving gladiators armed with nothing more than kitchen knives and stolen tools would attempt to escape one of the most heavily guarded gladiator schools in Italy. No army, no horses, no supplies, no chance of success. Against them stood Rome, the city that had conquered kingdoms. The republic whose disciplined legions had crushed countless enemies. The masters of the ancient world. How could 70 slaves possibly challenge an empire that commanded hundreds of thousands of soldiers? The answer was courage born from desperation. Because history has shown, time and time again, that the most dangerous people are not those who have everything to lose, but those who have nothing left. By sunrise, blood would stain the streets of Capua. Within a year, an army of escaped slaves would defeat one Roman force after another. Within 2 years, the republic itself would tremble. Senators would panic. Legions would be destroyed. Generals would be humiliated. And for the first time in generations, Rome would fear its own slaves. This is the story of Spartacus, not merely a gladiator, not merely a rebel, but the man who came closer than anyone imagined to bringing the Roman Republic to its knees. To understand how one slave nearly changed the course of history, we must first understand the world that created him. #Rome before Spartacus. By the 1st century BC, Rome had become the most powerful republic the Mediterranean had ever seen. Its armies marched across continents. Its banners flew over conquered kingdoms. Its roads stretched for thousands of miles. Gold poured into the city from every direction. To those looking from the outside, Rome appeared unstoppable. Its temples gleamed in the sunlight. Its markets overflowed with exotic goods from distant lands. Politicians promised glory. Generals celebrated magnificent triumphs through the streets. The republic looked stronger than ever. But beneath the marble monuments, cracks were beginning to appear. Rome's greatest victories had created an unexpected problem. Millions of people had been captured during Rome's endless wars. Entire villages disappeared. Kingdoms collapsed. Survivors were chained together and marched back to Italy. Not as citizens, not as allies, but as slaves. By the time Spartacus entered history, slavery had become the foundation of Roman society. Slaves worked in wealthy homes. They harvested grain across enormous estates. They dug deep into dangerous mines. They built roads, temples, bridges, and aqueducts. Some educated the children of senators. Others rowed ships until exhaustion claimed their lives. Many never experienced freedom again. To most Romans, slavery was simply part of life. Natural, necessary, profitable. Very few questioned it. The wealth of the republic depended upon it. The more Rome conquered, the more slaves arrived, and the richer the elite became. Powerful senators purchased vast estates known as latifundia. Small Roman farmers could not compete. Many lost their land. Some drifted into the cities without work. Others joined ambitious generals, hoping military service would provide a future. Slowly, the gap between the rich and the poor grew wider. Political corruption spread throughout the republic. Bribery became common. Ambitious politicians fought one another not only with speeches, but with violence. The Senate was no longer united. Every decision became another struggle for power. At the same time, successful generals were becoming more popular than the government itself. Men like Gaius Marius and Lucius Cornelius Sulla transformed Roman politics forever. Their rivalry plunged Rome into civil war. For the first time, Roman armies marched against Rome itself. The unthinkable had happened. Citizens were killing citizens. Neighbors fought neighbors. The Republic survived, but something inside it had changed. Violence had become a political tool. Power increasingly belonged to whoever commanded the strongest army. As the Republic grew richer, its humanity grew poorer. Nowhere was that cruelty more visible than inside the gladiator schools. To modern eyes, gladiators are remembered as heroes, legends, warriors admired by millions. But reality was far darker. Most gladiators were slaves. Some were prisoners captured during Rome's wars. Others were criminals. Some were desperate men forced to sell themselves into the arena to escape crushing debt. Every day began before sunrise. Training was relentless. Wooden swords first, then heavier weapons. Hours of combat practice beneath the unforgiving Italian sun. Mistakes were punished severely. Escape attempts often ended in public executions. Discipline was absolute. Because gladiators represented enormous investments, a skilled fighter could earn fortunes for his owner. The arenas of Rome demanded blood, and wealthy spectators happily paid to watch it. Among the most famous training schools stood one in the prosperous city of Capua. Its owner was Licinius Crassus. His business was simple: purchase strong men, break their spirits, train them to kill, sell excitement to the crowds. Within those walls lived fighters from every corner of the known world. Gauls, Germans, Greeks, Thracians, each carried a different language, a different culture, a different story, but all shared one fate. They belonged to someone else. Among them was a Thracian whose past remains partly hidden beneath the dust of history. Ancient historians disagree about many details of his early life. Some believed he had once served as an auxiliary soldier alongside Roman forces. Others claimed he deserted after being betrayed by those he fought for. Whatever the truth may be, he eventually found himself in chains, sold into slavery, purchased for the gladiatorial school at Capua. His name was Spartacus. Unlike many gladiators, Spartacus possessed more than extraordinary physical strength. Ancient writers described him as intelligent, calm, observant, a natural leader. He understood discipline because he had lived it. He understood war because he had survived it. Most importantly, he understood people. Inside the training grounds, he watched men lose hope. He saw prisoners transformed into entertainers. He watched friends die for the amusement of strangers. Every victory in the arena only guaranteed another battle, another chance to die. Freedom was an illusion. The arena rewarded survival, not escape. Yet Spartacus noticed something others overlooked. The guards were confident, too confident. The walls looked impossible to climb. The gates seemed impossible to open. But every fortress has weaknesses. Every empire has blind spots. And every system eventually creates the conditions for its own greatest challenge. Rome believed chains were stronger than hope. Rome believed fear could silence every slave forever. Rome believed 70 exhausted gladiators could never threaten the greatest military power on earth. Within weeks, the Republic would discover just how wrong it was. Because behind the walls of Gladiator's gladiator school, a quiet conspiracy had already begun. Kitchen knives would soon become weapons. Chains would become symbols. And one desperate escape would ignite the largest slave rebellion the Roman Republic would ever face. The age of Spartacus was about to begin. The Gladiator Revolt, Spartacus and Rome's greatest slave rebellion. Part 2. The escape from Capua plus rise of the slave army. For weeks, the gladiators waited. Every passing day felt the same. The clang of swords echoed through the training yard before sunrise. Instructors barked orders without mercy. Wooden practice weapons struck shields again and again until every arm burned with exhaustion. The guards believed the routine had broken them. They believed these men had accepted their fate. They could not have been more wrong. Hidden behind silent glances and whispered conversations, a conspiracy was growing. It began with a single question: what if we refused to die for Rome? No speeches, no promises, just one impossible idea: escape. The plan was desperate from the very beginning. Nearly 200 gladiators secretly agreed to flee the school of Licinius Crassus. But secrets are fragile. Someone talked. Whether through fear, greed, or simple carelessness, word of the escape reached the guards. The conspiracy had been discovered. There was no more time. The gladiators had only two choices: wait for punishment or fight. Only around 70 men managed to act before the gates were sealed. They found no swords, no armor, no military equipment. Instead, they stormed the kitchens. Cleavers, knives, iron spits, anything that could cut, anything that could kill. To Rome, these were cooking tools. To desperate slaves, they became weapons of freedom. With a roar that echoed through the stone corridors, the gladiators attacked. The guards never expected resistance. Within moments, panic spread throughout the school. Steel clashed against iron. Torches fell to the ground. Doors burst open. Blood stained the training yard where men had once prepared to entertain Roman crowds. Now they fought for something infinitely more valuable: their own lives. The gates were broken. The impossible had happened. The gladiators escaped. But freedom had only just begun. The fugitives fled into the countryside surrounding Capua. Behind them rode Roman patrols. Ahead of them lay uncertainty. They possessed almost nothing. No food, no shelter, no organized army, only determination. Then fortune intervened. According to ancient historians, the escaped gladiators encountered wagons transporting gladiatorial weapons. Inside were helmets, shields, swords, spears, and armor intended for future games. What had been meant for spectacle suddenly became instruments of war. The slaves armed themselves. Kitchen knives were replaced with Roman steel. For the first time, they looked like soldiers. More importantly, they began believing they could become soldiers. Spartacus quickly emerged as their leader. Alongside him stood two capable Gauls, Crassus and Enemus. All three were experienced fighters. But Spartacus possessed something different. He inspired confidence. He did not rule through fear. He listened. He planned. He understood that survival depended not only on courage but on discipline. The escaped gladiators could not afford mistakes. Rome would respond. It always did. Seeking a defensible position, Spartacus led his followers toward Mount Vesuvius. Long before the volcano buried Pompeii beneath ash, its steep slopes offered natural protection. The rebels established a camp high above the surrounding countryside. From there, they could watch every road, every approaching army, every movement made by Rome. The Senate, however, made a fatal mistake. Its members did not believe this rebellion deserved serious attention. To them, these were runaway slaves, criminals, a minor inconvenience, certainly not an army. Rather than sending experienced legions, the Senate dispatched a force under the praetor Gaius Claudius Glaber. His orders were simple: surround the mountain, block the only visible path, starve the rebels into surrender. It seemed like an easy victory. The Romans established their camp below the mountain, convinced the slaves were trapped. Escape appeared impossible. Steep cliffs protected every other side. The soldiers relaxed. Some joked that the campaign would soon be over. They underestimated one man, Spartacus. Standing atop the mountain, Spartacus carefully studied the landscape. Every cliff, every tree, every shadow. Then he noticed something. The side considered impossible to descend. Dangerous, steep, unthinkable. Exactly where Rome expected no attack. Using wild vines growing along the mountainside, the rebels braided ropes. One by one, under the cover of darkness, they climbed down the cliffs carrying their weapons. It was slow, terrifying. One mistake meant death. Yet not one man turned back. By dawn, the impossible had happened once again. The entire rebel force stood behind the Roman camp. The Romans awoke expecting starving fugitives. Instead, they found armed gladiators charging directly toward them. The attack was devastating. Glaber's soldiers barely had time to form ranks. Some reached for shields. Others fled immediately. Many never understood how the enemy had appeared behind them. Within minutes, the Roman camp collapsed. Weapons, food, armor, and supplies fell into Spartacus' hands. The slaves had achieved something no one believed possible. They had defeated Rome. News spread with astonishing speed. Across Italy, slaves whispered the same story. The gladiators defeated a Roman army. Many dismissed it as impossible. Others saw it as hope. On farms, in mines, inside wealthy Roman villas, people began disappearing. Slaves escaped during the night. Shepherds abandoned their masters. Prisoners fled captivity. One by one, They found Spartacus. The rebel camp grew every day. 70 became hundreds. Hundreds became thousands. Soon the mountain could barely contain them. But this growing army presented a new challenge. Not everyone was a trained gladiator. Many had never held a sword. Some were old. Some were young. Some had spent their entire lives working fields instead of battlefields. Spartacus understood that courage alone would not defeat Rome. His followers needed discipline. The same discipline that made Roman legions so feared. Each day became a lesson. Weapons were distributed. Defensive formations were practiced. Scouts were assigned. Watch posts established. Captured Roman equipment replaced crude farming tools. The rebels were no longer simply escaping. They were preparing for war. Rome still refused to understand the danger. The Senate believed Glaber's defeat had been an embarrassing accident. Surely another Roman commander would end the rebellion. Another force was sent. Then another. Both suffered humiliating defeats. Each Roman failure strengthened Spartacus' reputation. To the slaves, he seemed unstoppable. To Roman citizens, he became a nightmare. Stories grew with every victory. Some claimed Spartacus possessed supernatural strength. Others insisted the gods themselves protected him. Ancient writers even recorded an extraordinary legend. One night, while Spartacus slept, a snake was seen coiled around his face. Rather than attacking him, it quietly disappeared. His wife, believed to be a Thracian prophetess, interpreted the sign. She declared that Spartacus was destined for greatness, that his fate would be extraordinary, but also tragic. Whether the story was true no longer mattered. Legends have power, and Spartacus was becoming a legend while he was still alive. As autumn turned toward winter, the rebellion transformed beyond recognition. The camp now resembled a moving nation rather than a band of fugitives. Blacksmiths forged weapons. Women and children traveled alongside the fighters. Captured livestock provided food. Lookouts guarded every approach. Messengers carried orders across the growing army. This was no longer merely an escape. It was a revolution. For every slave who joined Spartacus, another Roman landowner lost valuable property. Fear spread through Italy. Villa owners hired extra guards. Merchants worried about the safety of the roads. Travel became dangerous. Even wealthy senators began asking unsettling questions. What if the rebellion continued to grow? What if thousands became tens of thousands? What if Rome itself became the target? The Senate had laughed at 70 gladiators. No one was laughing anymore. Yet amid the celebration, Spartacus remained realistic. He understood something his followers often forgot. Every victory against small Roman forces would eventually provoke a greater response. Sooner or later, the Republic would stop underestimating him. Sooner or later, real legions would march. The same disciplined armies that had conquered Gaul, Greece, Hispania, and countless kingdoms beyond the Mediterranean. The greatest military machine in the ancient world would come. And when it did, everything would change. But before Rome could strike with its full strength, Spartacus would achieve victories that shocked the ancient world. Victories so extraordinary that senators began to fear a question they had never imagined asking. Could a slave defeat Rome itself? The Gladiator Revolt, Spartacus and Rome's greatest slave rebellion. Part 3. Rome underestimates Spartacus plus greatest victories. The Roman Senate had made one disastrous mistake after another. First, they dismissed Spartacus as nothing more than a runaway slave. Then they underestimated a handful of gladiators armed with stolen weapons. Now, they faced an army. What had begun as a desperate escape from a gladiator school had transformed into the greatest slave rebellion in Roman history. Every Roman commander sent against Spartacus had returned defeated or had not returned at all. The republic that had conquered kingdoms was being humiliated by men who, only months earlier, had been fighting for the amusement of spectators. Rome had never experienced anything like it, and the fear was beginning to spread, not only among senators, but among ordinary citizens. If slaves could defeat Roman soldiers, what did that say about Rome itself? By the winter of 73 BC, Spartacus' force had grown into something astonishing. Thousands of escaped slaves poured into his camp. Gauls, Thracians, Germans, Greeks, shepherds, farm workers, miners, prisoners, even some free men, driven by poverty or resentment toward the Roman elite, chose to join the rebellion. Ancient sources disagree on the exact number. Some estimate 40,000. Others suggest more than 70,000. A few claim the army eventually approached 100,000 followers. Whatever the true figure, the message was unmistakable. This was no longer a riot. It was a nation on the move. Families traveled with the army. Blacksmiths repaired weapons. Scouts patrolled the countryside. Captured Roman horses strengthened the cavalry. Entire camps appeared and disappeared with remarkable efficiency. The Roman Senate had expected chaos. Instead, they found organization. Spartacus understood something that many Roman commanders did not. An army survives not because of its size, but because of its discipline. Although many of his followers had never served in battle, Spartacus imposed order wherever possible. Experienced gladiators trained new recruits. Captured Roman officers were studied carefully. Weapons taken from defeated legions replaced farming tools and improvised spears. Soon, many of the rebels carried Roman shields, Roman helmets, Roman swords. Ironically, the Republic was now arming the very people trying to destroy it. Yet Spartacus never allowed victory to become arrogance. He constantly moved his forces. He avoided becoming trapped. He chose battlefields carefully. He struck where Rome was weakest. Years of military experience had taught him a priceless lesson. The greatest advantage is not strength. It is surprise. The Senate could no longer ignore the crisis. This time, Rome responded with far greater force. Two consular armies were assembled under Lucius Gellius Publicola and Gnaeus Cornelius Lentulus Clodianus. Together, they commanded tens of thousands of professional soldiers. These were no inexperienced militia. These were Roman legions, disciplined, well-equipped, veterans of countless campaigns. Their mission was simple: trap Spartacus between them, destroy the rebellion forever. On paper, the plan was flawless. One army would block Spartacus from moving north. The other would attack from behind. Caught between two Roman forces, the slave army would have nowhere to escape. It should have ended there. It did not. Before facing the full strength of Rome, tragedy struck within the rebel ranks. Not everyone agreed with Spartacus. One of his closest commanders, Crassus, had become increasingly independent. The fierce Gallic warrior wanted battle. He believed the rebels should continue attacking Roman territory. Some ancient historians suggest Spartacus wanted to march north, cross the Alps, and allow the escaped slaves to return to their homelands. For many of the Gauls and Germans, however, revenge mattered more than freedom. Why flee Italy when Rome itself could be punished? The disagreement split the army. Crassus separated from Spartacus with perhaps 30,000 followers. It was a decision that would prove fatal. Roman forces under Gellius caught Crassus before Spartacus could intervene. The battle was brutal. Thousands of rebels fell. Crassus himself died fighting. When Spartacus learned of his friend's death, ancient writers claim he honored him in an extraordinary way. Captured Roman prisoners were forced to fight each other in gladiatorial combat. The same bloody entertainment Rome had demanded from slaves was now inflicted upon Romans themselves. It was more than revenge. It was a message. Spartacus wanted Rome to understand the cruelty of its own world. The death of Crassus might have destroyed a lesser commander. Instead, it strengthened Spartacus' resolve. Moving with astonishing speed, he turned against the remaining Roman armies before they could unite. First, he struck Lentulus. The Roman commander expected to stop a retreating enemy. Instead, Spartacus launched a furious assault. Roman lines broke. Legionaries fled. Weapons, supplies, and standards were abandoned. Before Lentulus could recover, Spartacus marched directly toward Gellius. Once again, the Romans expected an exhausted enemy. Instead, they met an army filled with confidence. Another crushing defeat followed. Within days, two Roman consular armies had been shattered. The impossible kept happening. Rome's finest soldiers were losing battle after battle to escaped slaves. The Senate could scarcely believe the reports. Some accused the generals of cowardice. Others suspected exaggeration. How could disciplined Roman legions repeatedly lose to men who had begun the war armed with kitchen knives? The answer was standing at the center of every battlefield: Spartacus. Ancient historians often compared great commanders by their ability to adapt. In this regard, Spartacus was exceptional. He rarely repeated the same tactic twice. When Roman commanders expected him to defend, he attacked. When they prepared for battle, He disappeared into the mountains. When they believed he was retreating, he struck from another direction. His understanding of terrain was remarkable. Forests became ambushes. Hills became fortresses. Rivers became barriers that slowed Roman pursuit. He refused to fight on Rome's terms. Instead, he forced Rome to fight on his. Perhaps this was his greatest weapon. Not strength, not numbers, but unpredictability. Victory after victory transformed Spartacus into something greater than a military leader. He became a symbol to slaves across Italy. He represented hope to poor farmers. He represented resistance to Rome's wealthy elite. He represented nightmare. Every estate owner feared waking to discover their laborers had vanished during the night. Every senator wondered how many slaves served in his own household. How many secretly admired Spartacus? How many waited for the right moment to rebel? Trust itself began to disappear. The Republic was no longer fighting one army. It was fighting fear. As the campaign continued, Spartacus pushed steadily northward. For the first time, freedom seemed within reach. Beyond the Alps lay Gaul, Thrace, Germania, and countless lands untouched by Roman slavery. If the rebels crossed those mountains, many could return home. The Senate understood the danger, not merely because thousands of slaves would escape, but because Rome would suffer the greatest humiliation in its history. An army of slaves would have defeated the Republic and lived to tell the story. Every future slave rebellion would remember Spartacus. Every enemy of Rome would see weakness where once there had only been strength. The Republic could not allow that. Spartacus stood on the edge of history. One final march could end the rebellion in victory. Yet somewhere along the journey, everything changed. Ancient historians still debate why. Some believe many of the rebels refused to leave Italy after years of plundering rich estates. Others argue Spartacus himself saw an opportunity to strike deeper into Roman territory. Perhaps discipline within such a vast army simply began to collapse. Whatever the reason, instead of crossing the Alps, Spartacus turned south. The decision remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Had he crossed those mountains, he might have disappeared into freedom. Instead, he marched back toward the heart of Italy, back toward Rome, back toward destiny. The Senate realized that ordinary commanders were no longer enough. This rebellion demanded extraordinary measures. One name soon rose above all others: Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome, a politician of immense ambition, a commander determined to restore Rome's honor, no matter the cost. Unlike the generals before him, Crassus would not underestimate Spartacus. He would rebuild discipline with ruthless brutality. He would train new legions relentlessly, and he would hunt the rebels until either Rome survived, or they did. For Spartacus, the victories that had inspired an entire generation of slaves were about to lead him toward his greatest challenge. The days of fighting careless Roman commanders were over. Now, he would face a man every bit as determined as himself, and neither would leave the coming campaign unchanged. The Gladiator Revolt, Spartacus and Rome's greatest slave rebellion. Part 4. Crassus, the final campaign and the last battle. Rome had finally learned its lesson. For nearly 2 years, the Republic had underestimated a slave. It had sent inexperienced commanders. It had dismissed the rebellion as a temporary disturbance. And every mistake had been paid for in blood. Now, the Senate turned to one of the wealthiest and most ambitious men in Rome, Marcus Licinius Crassus. He was not remembered as Rome's greatest general. He was not loved by the people like Pompey, nor admired like Julius Caesar. But Crassus possessed something equally dangerous: relentless determination. Failure was no longer an option. Rome's honor was at stake. The richest republic in the world could not allow itself to be humiliated by escaped gladiators. Crassus accepted command of 8 Roman legions, nearly 40,000 disciplined soldiers, professional warriors, veterans, men trained to obey without question. Before leading them against Spartacus, Crassus did something that shocked even Rome. A Roman unit had fled in fear during an earlier encounter with the rebels. Crassus revived one of Rome's oldest and cruelest military punishments: decimation. The soldiers were divided into groups of 10. Lots were drawn. One man in every group was chosen to die, not by the enemy, but by his own comrades. 9 soldiers were forced to beat the 10th to death. It was a horrifying spectacle, yet the message was unmistakable. Cowardice would not be tolerated. The next time they faced Spartacus, the Romans would fear their commander more than the enemy. Meanwhile, Spartacus understood the balance of the war was changing. The Roman armies no longer charged recklessly. They moved with discipline. They fortified camps every night. They refused careless battles. Crassus was patient. He intended to wear the rebellion down. Realizing he could not defeat Rome through endless victories, Spartacus sought a daring escape. He marched south to the tip of Italy. His plan was simple: cross the narrow Strait of Messina into Sicily. Sicily was filled with slaves. Only decades earlier, the island had witnessed massive slave uprisings. If Spartacus reached Sicily, thousands more might join him. The rebellion could begin again on an even larger scale. According to ancient historians, Spartacus negotiated with Cilician pirates. Gold changed hands. The pirates promised ships. The rebels waited. They watched the sea. Day after day, no ships arrived. The pirates had betrayed them. Taking the money, they disappeared into the Mediterranean. Spartacus had been abandoned. His greatest chance of escape vanished with the horizon. Crassus seized the opportunity. Determined to trap the rebels forever, he ordered one of the most extraordinary engineering projects in Roman military history. Across the narrow peninsula of southern Italy, Roman soldiers built a massive defensive line. A trench, an earthen wall, wooden fortifications stretching for more than 30 miles. It was a wall built not to keep enemies out, but to keep Spartacus in. The rebels found themselves trapped. Food became scarce. Winter approached. Every passing day weakened the army. Some urged surrender. Others argued for one final attack. Spartacus chose to fight. On a stormy winter night, the rebels launched a desperate assault against the Roman defenses. Using bundles of wood, earth, and even the bodies of fallen men, they filled sections of the trench under darkness. Then they charged. The fighting was savage. Roman soldiers struggled to hold the line. Amid the confusion, part of Spartacus' army broke through. Once again, he had escaped what seemed impossible. But victory came at a terrible cost. Thousands of his followers had been killed. Many more had been left behind. The rebellion was bleeding. Spartacus knew time was running out. He reportedly attempted negotiations with Crassus. Perhaps he hoped to save those who still remained. Crassus refused. Rome wanted only one thing: complete victory. Soon another danger appeared. Pompey the Great was returning to Italy after campaigns in Spain. If Pompey's army joined Crassus, Spartacus would be trapped between two experienced Roman commanders. There would be no escape. Spartacus made his decision. He would strike before Pompey arrived. One final battle. One final chance. The morning of the battle was cold and quiet. Mist drifted across the fields. Roman standards stood motionless. Thousands of soldiers waited behind locked shields. Across the plain stood the army of Spartacus, the survivors of countless victories. Men who had once been slaves, now warriors. They knew the odds. Many had no armor. Some carried damaged weapons. Others bore scars from years of fighting. Yet none chose to flee. Ancient writers tell us that before the battle, Spartacus brought his horse before the army. The men expected him to ride into battle like every great commander. Instead, he drew his sword and killed the horse. Turning to his followers, he declared, "If we win, I shall have many horses from the enemy. If we lose, I shall have no need of one." It was a promise. He would fight beside them, or die beside them. A roar swept across the rebel army. There would be no retreat. The battle began with the thunder of thousands of feet. Roman shields locked together. Spears flew through the air. The clash of steel echoed across the valley. The discipline of the legions slowly began to overpower the exhausted rebels. But Spartacus refused to surrender. Ancient accounts describe him cutting his way toward the Roman command, toward Crassus himself. He believed that if he could kill the Roman commander, the battle might still be won. Again and again he pushed forward. Roman soldiers fell before him. The distance closed, but every step brought new enemies. Fresh legionaries surrounded him from every direction. Still he fought, covered in blood, breathing heavily, driven not by hope, but by defiance. His closest companions fell one after another. The circle around him grew smaller, then smaller still. No ancient historian records the exact moment Spartacus died. Some say he was pierced by countless spears. Others believe he fought until he collapsed beneath overwhelming numbers. One fact remains certain: His body was never found. Perhaps it disappeared beneath the chaos of battle. Perhaps his followers carried it away. Or perhaps history chose to let the greatest slave who ever challenged Rome become a legend. By sunset, the rebellion was over. Nearly 60,000 rebels lay dead across the battlefield. Those who escaped were hunted down without mercy. Crassus had won. Rome had survived, but the price had been enormous. For 2 years, a man born into slavery had humbled the greatest military power on earth. He had defeated Roman armies, terrified senators, inspired tens of thousands to fight for freedom. He did not conquer Rome, but he forced Rome to confront its own cruelty. And though Spartacus fell that day, his name would never die, because some victories are measured not by surviving, but by proving that even an empire can bleed. The Gladiator Revolt, Spartacus and Rome's greatest slave rebellion. Part 5, Aftermath, Legacy, and Emotional Ending. The battlefield had fallen silent. Where thousands of voices had cried out only hours before, only the wind remained. Broken shields lay scattered across the blood-soaked earth. Roman standards still stood. The rebel banners had disappeared. Spartacus was gone. No victory celebration echoed from the surviving slaves. No triumphant speech marked the end of the rebellion. Only death. Only silence. Rome had won, but it was not the glorious victory the Senate had imagined. The Republic had spent 2 years fighting men it once believed were nothing more than property. Thousands of Roman soldiers had died. Entire armies had been defeated. Some of Rome's finest commanders had been humiliated. And all because one gladiator refused to accept his chains. The battle may have been over, but Crassus had one final lesson to teach. Mercy was not part of his strategy. Around 6,000 captured rebels were taken prisoner. There would be no trials, no negotiations, no forgiveness. Instead, Crassus ordered one of the most terrifying punishments in Roman history. The prisoners were crucified, one after another, cross after cross, stretching nearly 120 miles along the Appian Way, the great road connecting Capua to Rome. For travelers entering the capital, the message was impossible to ignore. Thousands of bodies lined the road, some still alive, some already dead, all left hanging as a warning. This is what happens to those who challenge Rome. The Republic hoped fear would erase the memory of Spartacus. Instead, it ensured that no one would ever forget him. Yet politics in Rome cared little for justice. Crassus had destroyed the rebellion. But before he could claim all the glory, another general returned to Italy, Pompey the Great. His army arrived after the decisive battle, intercepting and destroying several thousand rebels who had escaped the final conflict. Pompey quickly wrote to the Senate, claiming that although Crassus had won the battle, he had ended the war. The rivalry between the two commanders grew stronger. Both sought fame. Both wanted political power. Ironically, Spartacus' rebellion helped launch the careers of two men whose ambitions would later shape the fate of the Republic. Only a generation later, Pompey would stand beside Julius Caesar and Marcus Licinius Crassus in the First Triumvirate. The struggle for power that followed would eventually lead to civil war and the end of the Roman Republic itself. History often moves in unexpected ways. The defeat of Spartacus did not strengthen Rome forever. It merely delayed another crisis. For the surviving slaves of Italy, life returned to what it had been before. The chains remained. The markets continued. The arenas still filled with spectators hungry for blood. Gladiators continued to fight. Slave auctions continued to prosper. The wealthy continued to build fortunes on forced labor. In one sense, nothing had changed. Yet in another, everything had. The Roman elite had seen something they could never erase from memory. They had watched slaves organize, fight, win. They had watched ordinary men defeat trained legions. The illusion that Rome's power was absolute had been shattered. Never again would the Senate dismiss a slave uprising as insignificant. Fear had entered the halls of power, and fear has a way of changing empires. ## legacy. Who was Spartacus? Ancient historians could not fully agree. Some described him as a gifted military commander. Others saw him as a dangerous rebel, a criminal, a threat to civilization. Yet even those who opposed him often admitted one remarkable truth. He possessed extraordinary courage. The Greek historian Plutarch wrote that Spartacus was not only of great spirit and strength, but also more intelligent and civilized than his circumstances suggested. That single sentence survived for more than 2,000 years. It reminds us that history is often written by the victors. Yet even the victors could not deny his greatness. Spartacus never wore a crown. He never ruled a kingdom. He never built an empire. And yet, his name became immortal. Through the centuries, Spartacus transformed from a historical figure into a universal symbol. To some, he represented freedom. To others, resistance against oppression. Writers, artists, filmmakers, and historians return to his story again and again. Not because he won, but because he dared to fight against impossible odds. His rebellion inspired novels, paintings, and one of the most famous historical films ever made. Even today, his name is recognized around the world. Very few slaves are remembered by history. Spartacus became one of the most famous. His military achievements remain astonishing. With no formal army, he defeated experienced Roman commanders. With limited supplies, he sustained a rebellion for nearly 2 years. With escaped slaves, he challenged the greatest military power of the ancient world. No other slave revolt in Roman history came close to matching his success. Even in defeat, he forced Rome to reveal both its strength and its weakness. The strength of its disciplined legions, the weakness of a society built upon inequality. Perhaps the greatest mystery surrounding Spartacus is not how he fought. It is what he truly wanted. Did he hope to overthrow Rome? Did he simply wish to escape beyond the Alps? Did he dream of building a new homeland for free men and women? History offers no certain answer. His own voice has been lost. We know him only through the writings of Roman historians, men who viewed the rebellion through the eyes of the Republic. Perhaps Spartacus' greatest thoughts died with him on the battlefield. Or perhaps his actions spoke loudly enough. ## emotional ending. Empires often believe they are eternal. Their walls appear unbreakable. Their armies unstoppable. Their rulers untouchable. Rome believed all these things. Then one gladiator changed everything. Spartacus did not conquer the Republic. He did not sit upon the throne of Rome. He did not live to see freedom. Yet his story has outlived the Republic that condemned him. More than 2,000 years have passed. The senators who ordered his destruction are remembered only by historians. The armies that hunted him have long turned to dust. Even the mighty Roman Republic eventually disappeared into history. But the name Spartacus still lives. Perhaps that is history's greatest irony. The empire won the war, but the slave won immortality. His story reminds us that true greatness is not measured by wealth, titles, or power. It is measured by the courage to stand when surrender seems inevitable, by the determination to fight for hope when the world offers none, and by the belief that even one person can challenge the mightiest empire. Because sometimes, history does not remember those who ruled. It remembers those who refused to kneel. If you enjoyed this journey through ancient Rome and the incredible story of Spartacus, don't forget to subscribe for more epic documentaries exploring the greatest empires, battles, and legends of history. Thank you for watching. And until our next journey into the past, farewell.